Meet Luca Baumann, the German aerobatic pilot who's been wowing audiences with his aerial skills since a young age. Starting with the Horizon Air team at just 6 years old, Luca now travels the world, showcasing his talents and representing his sponsors at top events. But Luca's not just a showstopper. He's also a fierce competitor that has gotten great results in IMAC, F3S, and Freestyle competitions. Plus, he adds an extra layer of excitement with captivating night shows featuring pyrotechnics and thrilling glider shows. In this chat, we talk about Luca's start in the hobby, discuss his IMAC precision and freestyle planes, and do a deep dive on his approach to setting up his jets, including some details about thrust vector gyro settings. Luca Baumann, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Can you give us maybe a bit of an introduction of what you've been up to lately?
I'm now 20 years old, and I started flying when I was 5 years old, so I'm now flying for 15 years. And since 2009, I'm team pilot at Horizon Hobby Europe, and I also started flying competitions since 2009, and starting with youth competitions, and then also since 2018 I'm flying jet aerobatic S3S competitions, and since 2019 I'm German champion in jet aerobatic competitions, and I also fly IMAC and freestyle competitions and almost everything.
You said you started flying at 5. That's really early. Was somebody in your family, like your dad, into RC back then, or how did you get started at that early age?
My father wanted to start flying RC helicopter. Then he bought a simulator and a helicopter. And then I was sitting on the computer and was flying almost every day on the simulator. And I think that was already before. And then to my 5th birthday, I wished me an airplane. And then I got a sailplane. It was like an easy glider. I don't know the name exactly for which plane it was. And I know it was on May the 1st, which I made the maiden flight directly by myself. And yeah, that's how I started. Then I flew a bit on the field, and after a few flights, we go to a model airplane club near to my house. And then I started completely flying by myself, and yeah, my father flew 1 year a bit, and now he's just helping me and don't fly anymore.
These days, you are fairly focused in aerobatics, whether it's IMAC or jets, and you're obviously very good at it. Did you get interested in aerobatics pretty early, or were you flying some other stuff at the beginning?
When I started flying, I was also doing, it was like IMAC, but on the youth competition, just people under 18 years. And then we were also allowed to just fly small 1.5 meter planes, so 60-inch planes, with a maximum capacity of 6S lipos. So I had an Sebart Mito S50, and after that an Sebart Prometheus for the youth competitions. And I won almost every year there. And it was also something like S3A, IMAC, something like that. So I always fly aerobatics since I started flying.
Do you know, was there anything in particular that attracted you about aerobatics versus other types of RC flying?
Yes, it was in 2009 on the first Horizon Air Meet in Donauwörth, Germany. Kiki Somensini was there, and also Seth Arnold. And I saw Kiki flying with the Hangar 9 Beast, and it was really impressive for me, and I want to do the same. So that was why I completely started and also flying giant scale. I think my first giant scale aircraft was with, I think 8. It was 2011.
Wow.
It was, no. Also my first giant scale was the Hangar 9 XL300. the red, white, silver one.
It's a good first giant scale aerobatic plane.
Yeah, yeah. I still have it in my hangar.
Nice.
I'm still flying it sometimes.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's old, but it's still fun to fly because it's back to the roots a bit.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I think I had the previous version, like the first extra 300 from Hangar 9, the kind of like yellow, white, and blue. That one
Yeah,
was really, really,
the
really
XL
fun
260,
playing.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one was really fun playing. Um, Switching gears, I recently saw you at a pretty big air show. I think it's called Antidotum. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. In
Yeah,
Poland.
it's Antidotum Airshow in Poland, Leszno, yes.
That's a big air show, right? That's full scale airplanes.
Yeah, just full scale. I was the only pilot that flew RC planes.
How did you get involved in that one?
They invited me to fly because I'm here in Germany. I'm doing big night flight air shows with fireworks from the plane, and they saw me flying, and then they invited me to fly there because the air show there is just on the evening and night. They're also flying the full scale planes at night with fireworks and everything on it. And there's also the complete Red Bull planes, T-28, Corsair, everything. And the air show is crazy. I think on Saturday there were about 50,000 people.
Wow.
And this year we made something new with a friend of mine. I was towing with my extra 300 Swift S1 from Brockman Modellbau with 5.6 meter wingspan. And then we are doing aerobatic towing on the ground. We had the tow line lightened up with LEDs, and the sailplane makes some aerobatics like inverted flying or rolls on the tow line. And I was also doing some aerobatics in the ground. Then I towed him up into the high, and then he's doing his solo part. While he's doing his solo part, I was landing with my extra. Then I started the extra NG for 3D flying because with the extra 300, with the complete fireworks on it, it is too heavy to fly 3D because I have about 5 or 4 kilo of fireworks on the
Wow.
plane.
Did you have to do a lot of modifications to get the fireworks set up in the plane?
No, not really. I just have wires through the wings for the ignitions and for the lights. It's also a custom light which changed the LEDs. It's from RC Light Systems in the
Mhm.
UK. And I just reinforced the fuselage with a towing hoop because normally the fuselage is just styropor on the top, and I reinforced it completely with carbon fiber because the sailplane weighs about 20 kilos, and otherwise the plane wasn't stiff enough to carry it.
I think the combination of
Yeah,
aerobatics plus pyrotechnics plus lights plus night flying plus a glider also doing aerobatics is a pretty
mhm,
unique combination.
yeah. This weekend we are doing it again on the glider fair in Schapmünden. It's one of the biggest glider fairs in Europe. They are coming all companies around Europe just for this fair, and there's also a noon show in the evening and night show, and we are doing it there again.
It also seems like this year has been pretty busy for you. I think you were, at least I'm aware
Yeah,
of, you've been to a bunch of events, obviously in Europe, but on top of it, you've been in Israel, I believe, to the Ido Segev Cup, right?
yeah.
And also in the US to Joe Nall. How hard is it to make it work? I assume that do you go to school or do you work at the moment?
At the moment, I'm doing apprenticeship as a mechatronic engineer, and we are doing 4 weeks working, then 1 week school. But in Germany, we have 30 days holidays, and normally the airshows are just on the weekend, so it isn't a big problem.
Awesome. How was traveling to Israel for the Ido Segev Cup? How was that competition? It looked really, really good. A lot of good flying from what I can see online.
It was really great there. It was a complete new experience because everything was different. In Israel, there are not much airfields. They had a normal grass field, and they converted the complete grass field to an airfield with roll with don't know the exact name in English. The grass, plastic grass.
Yeah, some kind of artificial grass. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great to fly there, and it was also a really great experience, because I know some people from Israel already, and to meet them in person in their own city, and going to dinner with them, and also flying against them, it was great.
At this point, you have flown freestyle competition pretty much all over the world. You've obviously done stuff in Europe.
Yeah.
You've been to the Tucson Aerobatics shootout in the US. You've been in Israel. Have you noticed any major differences either on the way pilots fly their freestyles or the way the judging happens in those competitions between different countries?
Yeah, it's in every country it's completely different. Like in USA with the stock mufflers, I also noticed that the plane is more crisp, because with normal cans it's not so crisp. And the US guys are already also flying crazy, because they're flying really close to you and all low. And in Germany, for example, they are more flying the lines, like precision, but also in 3D. So not so much going out to the field and going in, and yeah. And also Israel, it's a mix between everything. So I noticed in every in every city, everywhere, it's different how they fly.
These days, do you enjoy more freestyle or IMAC, the precision part of IMAC?
I really like flying both, because on IMAC you have to fly really precise, and on freestyle you can smack and fly low, and the mixture of both is great. I love to fly both.
What airplanes are you bringing for the IMAC competition?
For IMAC flying, for the Unlimited, I will use my Model Power Slick X360 with 3-meter wingspan and a DA170. And for freestyle, I will use my Extreme Flight X-Range 104-inch with a DA120.
That slick, do you have that set up specifically for IMAC or?
No, it is the freestyle version. It is the freestyle version, but I made it a bit more nose heavy and made smaller throws to fly in IMAC, because on the IMAC version you have just a bit of smaller elevator and smaller ailerons, and when you make less throws, it flies almost the same.
Gotcha. It's that brand is definitely not common at all here in the US. I don't know if there's any planes from Model Power here in the US, but I've seen some videos.
Yeah,
It looks like a really, really nice plane.
they're really great to fly, and they're also really light because of the composite Abachi structure. So the fuselage is composite, and the wings and elevators are styro Abachi. So the plane is really light. And my slick weighs 17.5 kilo wet with fuel and smoke. And for a 3-meter plane, it's really light. And yeah, the problem is sometimes for a plane, they're not producing much. It's not like Extreme Flight producing as much planes as they can make. They're just producing planes if you order one.
So they made them kind of custom for you when you order it.
Yeah, it's complete custom, like a car. You can say how big you want the ailerons or the elevators.
Oh, wow.
You can say where exactly do you want your wing tube, for example, or if you want the firewall for 2-cylinder or 4-cylinder, the canopy already glued in, or you can glue it by yourself if you want. Then you can have a carbon canopy or also a glass canopy like you want. And it's like a car, you can customize everything.
Yeah, that's very unusual in RC to see that.
Yeah. My slick, for example, also has a custom design, and the design is based on my Tomahawk Futura, and they're making everything you want there.
Yeah, speaking of the Futura, I believe that was one of the first jets that you flew when you were starting with jets,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the Futura was my first jet I had.
How was getting started with jets after having some experience with aerobatics, giant scale planes? How was the switch? Was it like pretty easy?
For me, it was easy because when you can fly aerobatics, you can also fly easy jets. The only difficult part on flying jets is with the throttle response, because the throttle response is much slower, like on a gas airplane. But for flying, it's no problem. You just have to manage on the first time you fly, then you have to pull out the flaps and the landing gear, and then you make some landing flights just to see how slow you can make the plane, and then it's no problem.
And I think I saw that you recently did some work on that Futura, right, to make it 3D capable.
Yeah, I have two Futuras. The orange one, that was my first jet, it already has an inside vector inside, but I converted it now to an outside vector because the throws are much more efficient. You have a bit more power and you can flip faster, and yeah, you can have a bit more fun with it. The red Futura is just for competition flying. It has no vector inside. I will just use it for the competitions.
Is that basically F3S?
Yes, it's actually yes.
How big is F3S over there in Europe?
It was big in Germany. There was every year a competition, but at the moment they stopped doing it. But I think they want to start to make a bit new version of S3S flying and want to make some international competitions. But I don't know when they're starting it. I just heard that they want to do more again, because at the moment here in Europe, the most flying part is scale flying. So it's IGMC scale jet flying.
Mhm. Is F3S pretty similar to F3A, but with sport jets?
Um, I think it's more like IMAC. Because the programs are a bit like on the IMAC flying, from the difficulty when you fly the advanced program. It, I think it's a mix between IMAC and S3A, something like that.
It's only known routines though, right? There is no known or freestyle, not at the moment at least.
If there are also some freestyle competitions,
Oh,
but I think at the moment the competitions I flew, they were just known programs. But on the new competitions, I think they already want to do unknowns then.
and speaking of
Yeah.
jets, I see a very big one behind you. That's your new
Yeah,
Ares XL.
that's my new Ares XL. I want to build for next year. It will be a bit lighter than the older one, with some other components inside. Also, again, with the JetCat P300 Pro, and it will also get a new custom design.
Yeah, and for people that are not familiar with this plane, they might have seen you flying your current RSXL, the red and black, at Joe
Yeah,
Nall, right? That's the one you brought a few months
yes.
ago to the US. I have to say that's probably one of the best demo flights with a sport jet I've ever seen. I think
Thank you.
it's common enough these days to see somebody doing those flat spins, those hovers with a thrust vector
Mhm.
jet, but it's very rare to see things like a rolling harrier or those type of like kind of rifle roll passes with
Yeah.
with a sport jet, and that the couple of videos I've seen of you over there in Joe Nall with your Ares XL, that looked really cool.
Thank you very much. I think the Ares is also the only plane which you can do maneuvers like that, because with the full ailerons, I can have the flaps with the ailerons, and yeah, I think with other plane you can't do it like this with the Ares.
Yeah, and that's you're correct. That the RS you have full the flaps can go up basically, right? Like it's not just the standard flap
Yeah,
versus something like the Comparf or the Carve Mephisto. I believe you still have
yeah,
flaps inboard and ailerons on the outer
yeah,
half
aileron.
of the wing.
Yeah, yeah, but on the Mephisto you can use
Mhm.
ailerons, because with the pendulum elevator you can use it as ailerons, and then you also can roll a bit, but not as fast like with the Ares.
So one of the things I always hear when I speak to um, jet pilots that do some 3D is that the challenging part of things like hovers with a jet is that
Hmm.
is what you were mentioning before, that slow delayed throttle response,
Yeah,
and they always mention that even for landings that makes it a bit challenging because you cannot do the fine tuning when you're close to the ground.
yeah.
How does that must play a big factor when you are doing those type of maneuvers like the rolling harrier or the hover so close to the ground? How do you approach that type of maneuver with a jet?
It's every time different, because also with the climate, when it's hot, the turbine don't have as much
Mhm.
power when it's colder, and yeah, you can't pull throttle up and then go up again. You have to manage the throttle a bit before, the thinking. Um, if it goes down, then you uh, already have to put more throttle. And yeah, I think after a few flights, you know what to do, and then it's not a big deal. But it's also from turbine to turbine different. For example, here in Germany, we are flying with Jet A1 kerosene, and you can have there a faster idle response on a jet cat turbines, for example, like with diesel, because the burning on diesel is not as fast like on kerosene or petroleum.
Does that mean that the throttle responds a bit faster on kerosene than diesel?
I think so, because on Journal I had to set the throttle response a bit back. Normally in Germany I fly with the throttle response on fast, and on Journal I had to put it back to normal, because otherwise my turbine stopped.
Oh wow, interesting.
I think it's also a factor from the fuel which you have. If you have a better fuel or not so good fuel, I think it's everything is there a factor.
How was Joe, by the way? I mind that that's a big trip in general, but especially when you're bringing, did you bring the
Yeah.
RS only, or did you bring also in some aerobatic plane, like a propeller plane?
From Germany, I only brought the RS with me by plane. I took it as sport luggage, so oversized baggage on the
Mhm.
plane. And I also had an extra NG there, because last year for the Tucson shootout I built a complete new extra NG at Desert Aircraft, and I stored it at Desert Aircraft, and DA brought it to me for the journal. So I had also my NG to fly there.
Nice. It's a good arrangement.
With the planes taking it by the plane, it's a bit cheaper than as air parcels, because then you on air parcels normally you have to pay taxes and everything. And as oversized package, it's not a problem like with taxes, but you don't know if they take your plane or take it not. I also had some troubles on Munich on the airport, because they wanted to first measure the door on the airplane if the box will fit on the plane.
Hmm.
And then you also have special dimensions which you have to be under, otherwise you can't they can't take the plane with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I pretty much always see people shipping the airplanes separately when they travel international with those like big crates,
Yeah.
those big wooden crates. And I always assume that that was the cheaper. It sounds like it might not be the cheapest, but it's probably the safest in terms of it's less likely to run
Yeah.
into issues. I know that Martin Pickering, who travels also all over the world with jets,
Yeah.
has also had like a bunch of horror stories about traveling with airplanes. Always like some weird
Yeah.
new thing, whether it's at the airport or usually with customs, and that's
Yeah.
common challenge.
The good thing if you travel with jets is with the smell of the kerosene, they don't smell it on the airport because the complete airport
It's the
smells
same.
like kerosene. And on gas airplanes, you have a bigger problem with the gasoline. They can smell it, then you can have a problem. But normally it should also work, but you have to clean the engine, the fuel tank, the tubes, everything. For example, for the Ido Segev Cup in Israel, I also took my XLNG with me by plane. But I made complete new fuel lines inside, a new fuel tank. I cleaned the complete engine and everything that I don't have any troubles on the airport.
Wow. Have you been also carrying all the additional equipment with you?
Transmitter batteries.
Any problems with batteries when you travel? I know that lipos are always
Lipos are not the problem. The
Hmm,
problem more is the transmitter.
really.
I already had sometimes the problem when I'm on the security control and then on the scanning. My transmitter, everything will close. Then they ask, what is it? For what are you using it? When you say for model airplanes, then they think it's for drones, for military stuff, and then you have to explain everything, but then it isn't a problem. The batteries are no big deal. You just have to tape all the connectors, that there is no open connector,
Hmm.
and you also have to write down how many ampere and watt the LiPo has, and then it's no problem.
One thing I thought was really interesting was in the Ido Segev Cup. I believe I saw something about potentially being able to borrow or rent an airplane from kind of the organization. I think they were putting together 2 or 3 airplanes
Yeah,
and letting pilots that were coming to compete use them. That sounds like something obviously hard to pull off for many competitions, but sounds like a really, really good idea if possible.
yeah. The problem is it isn't your own plane because every plane flies different. Then you may don't have your own transmitter. Um, and yeah, sometimes you also have to have one plane to fly with 3 people, for example. And if someone will crash the plane, the other 2 can't fly. And yeah, it's always a bit tricky. You can have luck, but also sometimes don't have any luck.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing like having your own plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess the nice thing about it is I can imagine many times somebody that might not be able to even try going to the event or the competition with this
Mhm.
they have the option. As you said, it's not straightforward. There's some edge cases to handle, and it's not optimal, but it's nice to have the option. I know for me at
Yeah,
least it would be really nice. Like I think there's many competitions I would love to go, or many events I would love to go, but the hassle of transporting an airplane such a long distance makes it
yeah.
pretty much impossible.
That's really great, but you have to deal with it, with the problems you can have. But for some people, it's great because then they can go and fly and don't have problem with transporting. Because not every airline allows to transport the plane, or sometimes it is also way too expensive for the price you pay just for the shipping. You can rather buy a new plane. For example, last year for the shootout, I also want to ship my planes, and then I think the shipping was over 8,000 euro. And for 8,000 euros, it's about $8,000. And for that money, you can also buy a new plane and build it there and leave it there, or fly it there and sell it after the competition, for example.
Yeah, it sounds like you basically went that route, right? You made your own plane here in the US for the shootout, and now you have it
Yeah.
here available for next time you want to come.
Yeah, at the moment it is at Extreme Flight, and if I come to the US again, I will write to them and they will bring it to me.
One other thing I was going to ask you about jets and the RX XL in particular. You are using there a gyro, right? You're using a Cortex, I believe.
Yes, Cortex Pro.
How is your process for getting that set up? I assume that gyro plays a big part on those type of like 3D maneuvers with these airplanes, right? So I assume that the tuning of the gyro is pretty critical, and these are not
Yeah.
super popular planes, and they're not. There's not a lot of people that you can like use as a reference on how to set it up. So how is your process to set this up?
Yeah, first you just fly it and set it up like a normal plane with the gyros. For example, you fly straight and then you go up with the gain, and when it starts shaking, you go down again a bit, and then you make some snaps or something like that, and then you see if the plane is going straight or it's shaking a bit again after rolling. For example, when you make a fast roll, it should stay straight, not shake after the roll a bit. And if you have set it up like this, then you start doing the same. Like, for example, the hardest part for the gyro is harrier, because if you have less gain, it is starting to shake like this.
The wing rocking.
And yeah, and then you have to find a good mixture to have high gains. For example, on the Ares, I have on the high gain for 3D flying 100% gain. But as soon as I go up and fly faster, I have to switch the gain back to normal flying, because otherwise it would shake because is too much.
So basically, you have two different
And
modes
yeah,
based on the speed the airplane is flying at. Or...
yeah, I made it now like this. For example, I have the switch when I have the vector off. Then I have my normal gain, and when I have the vector on, I have increased gain for 3D flying, because when I have the vector on, I don't fly at full speed. And I made now about, I think, 100 test flights with different gains, and I found now the perfect setup that I can also fly with the high gain normal without shaking. Yeah, and then I don't have to switch any gains while flying, just when I go the vector on or off. Because when the vector is on, you don't fly with low passes with full speed, for example. You don't need a vector, then I go down flying without vector, and then I have the lower gain, and then it's no problem to fly.
So you're saying that you only use thrust vector for specific maneuvers. If you're doing just a knife
Yeah.
edge pass, kind of a fast knife edge pass, you have thrust vector off.
Yes. For example, on the RS, it flies complete straight. You don't need a gyro there. With the high fuselage, it's flying like a S3 plane.
Yeah, it looks pretty much like a fast pattern airplane with a jet turbine in the back.
Yes.
Yeah, I was mentioning before. I think I've seen some people flying jets like the Mephisto, for example, and they will actually keep the thrust vector on pretty much all the way, because you can get a little bit of like help, for example, with an FH pass. You have a little bit of the support from the thrust vector, so you can go
Yeah.
maybe a bit slower. Without having to without having to go that fast is to get that support from the tail, but it seems like the pilot probably can choose their based on their preferences and their plane in particular.
Yeah, it's on every plane different. For example, I don't like flying all the time with vector on, because then when you're doing, for example, rolls, fast rolls, then you are also circling with elevate and rudder, and with the vector you have more gain on the with the it wants to do flips immediately if you have too much throws, and then sometimes it's flying a bit weird, so I prefer to fly the normal stuff without vector and just the 3D stuff with vector.
On your propeller planes, on your Extreme Flight Extra or your Power Model Slick, what is your typical transmitter setup there? Do you do everything with a single rate? Do you have multiple rates? How do you like to set up your planes?
I always have two different rates, so small rates for flying more pattern flying, like slow rolls or knife edge or something like that, and for the 3D flying, I'm going to high rates.
Does that mean that for a freestyle
Yeah.
routine, you are flipping back and forth a good amount?
Yes, just for the normal stuff, I have slow, um, I have lower throws, because then you can also make better slow rolls, and yeah, I prefer flying with two different sets of gain rates.
Mhm.
But it's on every pilot. A pilot flies different. For example, the US guys also have the dual rate. Every surface on a different switch. For example, one switch just for the aileron dual rate, one switch for elevator and one for rudder. I just have one switch for everything.
Yeah, more like flight modes than individual dual rates.
Yeah, also with the modes. For example, on the transmitter. In Germany, there are some people flying mode 1, so throttle on the right side and aileron on the right side. Also some mode 2, I think some also mode 3, but not that much, and also mode 4. For example, I fly mode 4, it's throttle on the left and aileron on the left, and elevate and rudder on the right stick. And on the US, for example, everyone is flying mode 2 there.
Yeah, I think when I was in Spain and now here, pretty much everybody I see flies in mode 2.
Yes, it's in every country different.
You mentioned before you've been with Horizon Hobby as team member for a very
Yeah.
long time, right? How did you get
Yes.
involved with Horizon Hobby?
It was on the first air meet. They want to do a world record with as much park zone planes as possible in the air. And then I wrote them that I want to fly there. And then they wrote me back that a 5-year-old child can't fly. I have to come a day earlier to the air meet, and then I should fly there and show them that I can fly. Then I was there, and yeah, Joe Shamoon, the CEO from Horizon Hobby in Germany, came to me on Christmas and asked me if Horizon can would like to support me for 1 year to see how I will grow and how I will fly. And yeah, since 2009 on Christmas, I'm team pilot at Horizon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember what airplane you flew on that air meet?
It was from Park Zone, the P-51 Mustang.
I assume you're now using Spectrum transmitter, Spectrum
Yeah.
receivers, and servos in your planes.
Everything is from Spectrum. I fly with the Spectrum IX20 SE and with the power safe receivers, and also with the Spectrum A6300 or A6350 servos. For me, they're working great. I never had any problems with them, and I really like the servos. They're great. They have zero play, are really fast and strong, and I never had any issues with them.
Yeah, I haven't seen many people using Spectrum servos on big aerobatic planes or big jets, but I'm starting to see a bit more. I've seen some people putting them on some jets here in the US, and haven't heard any.
Yeah, now they
any
are really
complaints so
growing
far.
with the Spectrum servos. Also in Germany, the big jets with 400 or 500 size turbines are all having mostly spectrum servos inside.
You have been doing a lot of stuff with aerobatic planes, with jets, both in Europe and internationally. Um, do you have any additional goals, dreams, targets within RC in the next couple of years? Is there anything that you want to do more of, or do you want to try something new?
My dream is to be mm, to f- to win one of the big competitions. For example, my biggest dream was some years ago that I will fly on the Tucson shootout. That was my biggest dream, and last year it became reality. And yeah, for me, the goal on every competition is that the plane will survive, and I'm not the last one. That's my only goal on the competitions. But a dream is to win a competition like the Tucson, for example.
Yeah, I got the chance to fly on freestyle in the shootout, the 2019 shootout, and felt kind of the same. Like
Okay.
had always watched those videos from Spain of the best pilots in the world flying there, and
Yeah.
being able to fly over there was really cool. So I
Yeah.
can relate.
Yeah, I was also really happy with my result on the shootout. I never thought that I will be so good, but my dream was to fly there, and it became reality. I get the chance to fly there, so why not? And my only goal was not to be the last and the plane that it will survive.
Also, maybe we'll see you in the next shootout.
Of course, I will be there.
Do you have any final words of advice to somebody that is interested in aerobatics, jets, any of this stuff we've been talking about? Do you have any words of advice for them?
Yeah, if someone is interested to start flying aerobatics or, for example, also jets, the best thing is if you go to a club near to you, because there are always some people who are flying aerobatics or maybe also jets, and then you can speak with them, then they can give you some tips and also help you, for example, what first jet you can buy or what first gas airplane or aerobatic airplane you can buy, and they help you setting it up and everything. Or you can also go to air shows, for example, like the Joe Nall. There are always some people who will help you, and maybe they allow you also to fly plane from them with as a trainer mode. Then you can test it, and then you say, yeah, you want something like that too, and then yeah.
Yeah, definitely meeting up with people that are doing what you want to be doing is definitely a really good first step.
Yes, or also on the forums, asking people, for example, on RC groups, or in Germany it's called RC Network. You just have to write there that you're interested in doing, for example, jet flying, and there are always some people who write you what you can do, or yeah, what you want to do, or yeah.
Yeah, definitely nowadays with internet, it helps a lot. I know when I was starting with robotics and 3D back in Spain, there wasn't a lot of people doing that nearby, and ended up discovering flying circles, now flying giants, and that was a big resource to see videos of people doing the maneuvers I wanted to learn and ask questions and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Luca, for taking the time to talk about all the cool stuff you've been up to. Yeah, hope to see
No
you
problem. Thank you for
sometime
the
in the US.
invitation and everything.
Yeah,
Thank you. Next year I will definitely come back to the US. I will come to the journal again and to the shootout if it will happen next year, and also for the 3D contest in um I don't know the exact name, it's the Ultimate 3D
yeah,
throwdown with 12 pilots.
yeah. I know which one you're talking about. I
Yeah, I
forget the
got
name right now, but the new thing that they're organizing on the West Coast.
yeah, I got the invitation there, and I will definitely fly there next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Luca.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.